When you hear the name Reiji Miyajima, there is probably a pretty good chance that your mind immediately jumps to one thing, and that is Rent a Girlfriend, obviously. And depending on who you ask, actually, let's be real here, depending on whoever you ask, that's probably a very bad thing. Because while Rent a Girlfriend has become one of the most popular romance manga of the last decade, it has also become one of the most criticized, endless pacing, most frustrating character decisions, hundreds of chapters that somehow felt like they moved at an inch at a time. At this point, Rent a Girlfriend basically feels like it's the punching bag of the romance community. But what I don't hear a lot of people talk about is Reiji's other work, his other manga, you know what I'm saying, dude? His other manga that aren't named Rent a Girlfriend. And in this video, I want to talk about specifically another anime slash manga that he's made that is called the Shuinji Family Children, okay? And this series somehow took many things that people don't like about Rent a Girlfriend and either made them watchable or improved them significantly. Now, is this anime perfect? No. Is it becoming the next top tier romance? No, obviously not. But it does prove something that many anime fans have forgotten, and that is the fact that Reiji was never actually lacking talent. His problem was always execution. First, let's talk about the biggest difference in both the animes, and that is obviously, to me, the main character. Let's start with the elephant in the room first, Kazuya. And honestly, I like to consider myself to be a kind of Kazuya defender a little bit, okay? I can see Kazuya serving his purpose sometimes, if you get what I'm saying. He serves his purpose sometimes. The problem is that after years and years of chapters, many readers feels like he's still making the same mistakes over and over and over again, which is a fair criticism. And obviously, after years and years, it becomes a little bit exhausting and you lose your patience with it, obviously, right? But then in this anime, we have Arata, who almost is kind of the complete opposite of Kazuya. You immediately notice the difference with him. Arata isn't some revolutionary protagonist that's going to redefine the romance genre or anything. He's just kind of normal. He's responsible, he's reliable, he acts like an actual human being, which I think you can kind of respect a little bit. I think the biggest difference between the two is that when a situation happens or something, right, Arata usually addresses it in that episode or in that chapter or something, right? Instead of Kazuya, who kind of spends 10 chapters basically panicking internally about that stuff. And I think because of that, the audience can focus on the relationships developing around him rather than constantly being frustrated by his actions, right? I think that's the biggest difference between Arata and Kazuya. That's obviously not to say Arata is perfect, but unlike Kazuya, he feels like a protagonist you're meant to root for rather than tolerate. And honestly, I find that to be a huge improvement. Next, let's talk about the story. If there's one criticism that has followed Rent a Girlfriend for years, it's the pacing, obviously, because let's be honest, how many times have we seen a major moment happen in Rent a Girlfriend, get built up only for the story to hit the brakes just immediately? How many chapters have ended with what looked like a massive development only for the next chapter to immediately walk it back, basically? It's one of the biggest reasons why so many readers eventually drop Rent a Girlfriend. Now, the Shuinji Family Children doesn't have that problem, and that's because the story establishes its main conflict almost immediately, right? With all these characters now having to learn to be with each other without them actually being related to each other. And from that moment forward, every interaction kind of feels different. The story isn't constantly trying to return to the status quo. It's trying to explore the consequences of the situation, right? It's like characters are changing, relationships are evolving, things are actually happening. The biggest compliment I can give the Shuinji Children is that it feels like the author actually trusts his audience. He's not dragging every development out for maximum chapter count. He's letting the story progress naturally, and it feels like it flows pretty well. And because of that, every chapter kind of feels more meaningful. One thing I'd also like to highlight is how the Shuinji Family Children highlight Miyajima's strengths, right? Even people who hate Rent a Girlfriend usually admit one thing. Reiji is a good ass artist, bro. Seriously, look at the character designs, look at the expressions, look at the paneling. The man can fucking draw, and that's always been one of his greatest strengths. But another strength people don't talk about enough is his ability to create romantic tension. Because let's be real for a second, Nobody reads 100 chapters of a romance manga like Rent-A-Girlfriend if the chemistry is completely non-existent and there isn't any romantic tension. Let's just be real here. The problem was that Rent-A-Girlfriend often stretched the tension to absurd lengths. Shunji kind of feels different from there. The chemistry is still there, the emotional moments are still there, the character interactions are still there, but now they've kind of attached that story that's like actually moving. It's like watching an athlete finally play in the right system. The talent was always there, now it's being used more effectively. Now let's answer this question. Is the Shunji Family Children a masterpiece? Definitely not. I don't think it's redefined the romance genre. I don't think people will be talking about it 20 years from now the same way they talk about Clannad, Oigaru, or even maybe Kaguya-sama. But that's not really the point, right? The point is that this series proves something to me. It proves that Reggie isn't some terrible writer who accidentally just like stumbles into success. You know what I'm saying, dude? He's a creator with legitimate strengths, strong artwork, memorable characters, good chemistry, and even some solid emotional moments. I don't think the issue has ever been whether he has talent or he doesn't have talent. I think the issue has always been how that talent is utilized. And the Shunji Family Children feels like the closest thing we've gone to seeing Reggie at his absolute best. But what I think makes the Shunji Family Children so enjoyable isn't the romance or even the artwork. I think it's the atmosphere. There's a certain charm to watching this family navigate such a bizarre situation while still trying to maintain the bonds they've built up over their entire lives. The story constantly asks one simple question. When everything you thought you knew about your family changes, what happens next? And that's the question that keeps pulling you back for more. Because at its core, the Shunji Family Children isn't just a romance. It's a story about relationships, how they're formed, how they're tested, and how they evolve when the truth comes to light. And I think that's what makes it such an interesting watch. The Shunji Family Children isn't trying to reinvent romance anime. It's simply telling a compelling story with likable characters, great chemistry, and beautiful artwork and animation. And sometimes that's all a series really needs. If you've been sleeping on this one, it might be time to just give it a chance. I do truly believe that this is one of the biggest surprises to come out of the romance genre recently, because somehow the author behind one of the most controversial romance series of the modern era ended up creating a romance that people somehow actually enjoy a little bit. And whether you're a Rent-A-Girlfriend fan or one of its biggest haters, I think that's worth talking about. But let me know what you think. Did Reggie Miyajima finally make a good romance, or do you think the Shunji Family Children is getting more praise than it actually deserves? If you've enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Peace.